Good evening and welcome to Monsters Among Us. I'm your guide, Derek Hayes. Welcome folks to the very first Tuesday episode. Now I'll briefly explain what's going on here. Then we're going to get into a slew of stories, all centered around creatures of one sort or another. But first, producing a second show a week is an idea I've been brewing for 3 or 4 years now. I have thousands of calls to choose from. I have the support and help of Sarah and Delaney. And with this new Tuesday format, I can produce a program much faster than I could a regular episode. So here are the basic rules. Each Tuesday episode will feature one phenomena: all UFO calls, all Ouija board calls, or all Bigfoot calls, stuff like that. And in those episodes, I'll be offering a limited commentary, tidbits here and there, but no deep dives and very few outside clips. And this part is important. You'll only have this second weekly episode through the spooky season, which luckily for you, I consider September 1st all the way to January 1st. But I suppose if the show does well, I'll consider continuing. Now I can hear a few of you squirming right now, and I understand your concerns, and trust me when I say, the regular show that drops each and every Thursday will remain unchanged, as will the Beyond. The only change here is that you're now getting a drop on Tuesday as well as Thursday. So spread the word, and let them know that we're out here. Now, for tonight's premiere episode. The world is full of monsters. Some real, some imagined, some known, and some still evade scientific evaluation. But the truth remains, there are beasts that roam this planet, things that go bump in the night. And from time to time, people see these anomalies, darting in and out of the shadows, or leaping across a darkened road late at night. So tonight we're going to investigate a few of those sightings a little further. Reports submitted to me via my 24/7 hotline. Tales of enormous, upright amalgamations, out-of-place animals, and true monsters, the very definition of the word. So join me if you dare, as we explore calls about creatures, in this, the very first Tuesday release. And to kick us off, we begin out of the state of Virginia, where Wolf is waiting with a creature sighting of his own.
Hey, it's Wolf. I'm calling back with another paranormal story of mine. I was listening to Season 9, Episode 5 with the link to the Pale Crawler video. And it kind of reminded me of something I hadn't even thought about in a while. A little thing I saw in my own backyard, I guess it was about 3 or 4 years ago, because our outdoor cat, a stray cat we adopted, was still alive, I believe, because our neighborhood had a raccoon problem at that point. But this was not a raccoon. We have this sunroom that kind of sits over a covered patio, kind of makes a covered patio in the backyard. And this thing ran from the patio to the back fence where it cuts off our property and begins my back neighbor's property. Now, he owns about 10 acres of property, and there's a creek called Hazel Run that runs through the property, right plumb to the fence and parallel to it. Now, when I say this thing ran, I mean it was galloping like a monkey. It had no tail. I had a flashlight, and I slimmed the neck on the flashlight so that the beam would focus, and I'm watching this thing, following it with this flashlight, this narrowed beam flashlight. It had salt and peppery it looked salt and peppery, so I'm guessing it had fur, or maybe just salt and peppery looking skin, but it was salt and peppery in color. And it was galloping like a monkey on all fours. And when it got about to the fence, it stood up. And when I say it stood up, I don't mean it just straightened its back like you would expect an animal not used to standing up on two legs, standing up. It pushed off of the ground like something that was transitionally bipedal would do, like a humanoid standing off of the ground. Its arms kind of dangled at its sides. It did not hold them up at its chest level like a raccoon or a possum or some animal that wasn't used to standing up or was not able to stand up, trying to stand up. It was shorter than the fence. The fence is only maybe about 5 feet tall. It's not a tall fence. It's a chain link fence. And just for reference, there's about 6 foot tall wooden fence on either side. At least 6 foot tall fence on either side of our backyard. So it forms kind of a square. This thing turned and looked at me, and it turned its shoulders. It did not turn its body. It did not turn its head. It turned its shoulders and looked at me. And I'm sitting there flashing the flashlight at it. Its eyes were ghost white. It was clearly reflecting, but its eyes were ghost white. And it leapt the fence. And when I say leapt the fence, I mean it put one hand up on the fence, the other hand came up, and then it pushed up on the fence and flipped both its legs out over the fence and into the tree line, about where the creek begins, and was gone. I did not see it after that. I lost it. And even in the densest of foliage during the summer, you can still see my neighbor's house. You can see beyond this tree line. So I should have been able to see where it went, even with the flashlight. So this thing did not have a tail. And I want to emphasize that. I mean, I chased raccoons off of our side porch almost nightly because, like I said, we had adopted this stray cat and we had food out, and there was this fat mama raccoon that would come and her babies would come, and I would chase them off the porch and away from our cat's food. And this was not a raccoon. I've seen raccoons' eyes reflect in the dark, and they're usually like an orangey or green color, usually orangey color. This was white, ghost white, and it was big. Like the eyes seemed, at least, like the eyes took up most of the head, and it looked right at me. I didn't get a feeling off of it other than, what the is that? You know, what the hell is that? That was the only thing in my mind. Because I'm sitting there in my head watching this thing gallop like a monkey towards the fence. And it stood up like a primate, like a humanoid or a primate or something that could move on two legs. And it was small. It was only about 3 or 4 feet tall, maybe, because it was smaller than the fence. But its arms were maybe a little disproportionate because it reached up and put its whole hand on that fence, and then its other hand came up, and like I said, it just kicked both legs out and over this fence in one motion, like you see somebody jump a fence. I'm sitting there, I had the flashlight on it, I'm watching it do this, and it was over the fence and gone into that tree line. Like I said, the tree line, there's a little bit of a bank, and then you hit Hazel Run, that creek, and then there's a little bit more of a tree line, and then you hit this kind of open area where my neighbor's house is. And even during the summer with the dense foliage, you can see my neighbor's house pretty clearly. This was in autumn, I believe. It was probably about 6 or 7 o'clock, maybe 8 o'clock at night, so it's pretty dark. So, I mean, it could have disappeared fairly easily, but I had my flashlight on it, directly on it, and when it got over that fence, it was gone. Anyway, that's my weird, I don't want to call it a pale crawler because I don't think it fits that description, but it's my weird crawler. I'll call it a weird crawler because that's my weird crawler encounter. Anyway, keep it spooky and keep on keeping on, my friend.
Thank you, Wolf. You know, he mentions the pale crawlers. And recently, Delaney found something online that I found very interesting. It's actually a sighting map for the pale crawlers. Somebody took the time to go through the internet and dig up most, if not all, of the pale crawler sightings out there. And they plotted them on a map that you can zoom into and check out. And you can bet there are a few sightings from the area in which Wolf is calling from. I put a link to that in the show notes. But you know, based on the description that Wolf gave, it doesn't sound like a pale crawler to me. No, the dead giveaway is the possible hair. The pale crawlers are said to be completely naked and pale, one color. Instead, it almost sounds like what Wolf is describing is the distinct pattern of the albatwitch, a small Bigfoot-type creature that's said to inhabit south-central Pennsylvania. Aside from the patchy coat, he also described the creature as being upright, primate-like, and that it turned its shoulders to look at him, almost like Patty did in the Patterson-Gimlin video. And the other kicker here is that he described this creature as 3 to 4 feet tall, and most reports describe the albatwitch as 3 to 5 feet. So I'd say it's within range. And even if it wasn't, creatures grow to all sorts of different sizes. So it's more of a guideline than a rule. But as you probably picked up, Wolf is in the state of Virginia, and the albatwitch is from the state of Pennsylvania. Now, I don't know exactly where Wolf is calling from, but I do have his area code, and it is Northern Virginia, about as close to Pennsylvania as you can possibly get. Now, depending on where Wolf is, he could be as close as 100 miles away from the area that the albatwitch is known to roam. And when you're thinking about upright, hairy hominids, 100 miles is a drop in the bucket. Well, regardless of what you saw that evening, we thank you, Wolf, for taking the time to share it here with us on the very first Tuesday episode. Thanks for calling in.
Plus, fast shows are online.
Now, if you will, join me over in Colorado. Alice, welcome to the program.
Hey, Derek. This is Alice from Colorado. First off, I really like your show, so thanks for doing it and all your hard work and your team's hard work. Anyway, so first, my cousin looked up our family's genealogy on my mom's side, and my 9 times great-grandmother, her name was Rebecca Nurse. She was hung for witchcraft in Salem when she was 71 years old on July 19th, 1692. So you can look her up on the internet if you want. I thought that was kind of interesting. Anyway, so my main story, I guess, is cryptid. I'm older, I'm 70, but when I was about 8.5, 9 years old, my parents had a house built in Spokane, Washington, and shortly after moving in, at night I'd wake up and I would see these small, black, long-haired creatures. They're about the size of a Pekingese, and I know that because it was about the same size of the Pekingese dog that we got I don't know, when I was about 10 years old. And whenever I would get up out of bed at night, they would rush at me and they would bite at my legs and my feet. So I ended up just staying in bed, and sometimes I even went to bed because I had to go, but I wasn't going to get up and go to the bathroom with these creatures. I did look up on the internet when I finally had access to the internet to see if anyone else had experienced these creatures, and I looked again recently and I couldn't find anyone, but years ago when I first did look up, there was someone that said that they saw small black creatures at night when they would get up and walk around their house, and they would try and attack them. They didn't say like long hair and sharp teeth and all that, but I was kind of wondering if it might be the same creatures. Anyway, that's my story, so thanks.
Thank you, Alice. It's pretty neat, your connection to Rebecca Nurse, but it's awfully terrible what happened to her. Now, as for those dog-sized, long-haired, biting creatures in the bedroom, I have no idea what those are. But I do know that I was the kind of kid that I would have totally trapped one of those things. A clothes basket, some string, and a stick would have got the job done. Now, what I would have done with said creature once I caught it, that's a whole nother question altogether. Well, since I seem to have no input on this story, perhaps you do, listener. If so, give our hotline a call at 888-608-NIGHT. That's 888-608-NIGHT. Now, folks, join me in Minnesota. Nick will explain.
Hey, Derek. My name is Nick. I actually live in Minnesota, but I'm originally from Arizona, and that's where my story is going to take place. You recently had some Lechusa stories. Well, I actually have had an encounter with the Lechusa, and this took place in Phoenix, Arizona, right in the middle of the city. I was hanging out with some friends. It was pretty late in the evening, probably about 11 or 12. And we were hanging out, smoking cigarettes, being bad kids, doing things like that, illicit things, and hanging out. And we start seeing the lights around us seem to be covered very quickly and uncovered. It seems like a flash. Looks like something is flying by the light, and blocking it for a moment, and then leaving, and the light comes back. So we see this flash maybe 4, 5, 6 times around us, and the 4 of us just happen to get spooked. We're standing in the dark in the middle of the road, so we all decide to get in my friend's truck and hang out in there and continue telling stories. Well, the moment that we got in the truck, I happened to be in the back seat on the passenger side, as well as my best friend in the back seat on the driver's side. And we sit down, and in the truck we hear almost like a mixed with like a whistle, but at the same time and we look at each other with a confused look, and I ask him, "Do you hear that?" And he says, "Yes, I do." And at the exact moment that we start to hear it, I decide maybe I'll step out of the vehicle and see if we can hear it outside. And as I put my hand on the door handle and open the door, he looks out the passenger side window past where I'm sitting, and he sees a large white shape with what looks like wings start to descend and come directly at the vehicle on my side where the door is. He said it happened almost instantaneously. It looked like it was many, many miles away and then instantly there. I didn't really see it. I just saw a flash out of the corner of my eye, and as the door started to creak maybe about an inch open, we heard a loud thud on the top of the truck. It made like a dunk, 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 dunk across from the passenger side to the driver's side, and our 2 friends up front had not seen or heard anything. They were completely unaware. So when they heard this thump, they looked back and thought it was us and said, "What the heck was that?" And we said, "I don't know what that was, but we definitely both just saw something." So kind of just left it at that. We immediately left the area. We were about 3-4 miles from my friend's actual house. We were hanging out at another mutual friend's house and just booked it immediately. I didn't necessarily know what was going on at the time, but my friend's grandmother actually lived by there. And she explained to us that there was a witch in the area, that supposedly somebody was practicing witchcraft, and that's exactly what the lechuza is a witch that transforms herself into an owl or an owl-like creature that takes the shape of an owl, maybe has a woman's face or a woman's feet or hands, but also has wings and feathers and things like that. So she told us that there had been problems in the area where people were getting sick, and they were blaming it on this witch lady. And after confronting her, this is actually what occurred. This was the extent of that. This is what happened because of that confrontation. So I fully believe that I was nearly attacked by a lechuza. In the stories, the folklore, it said that they'll call out as women, they'll call out as babies, they'll call out for help to try to lure men away, and then they'll kill them, take them away, they disappear, they'll never see them again. So my thinking was that I heard this whistle and it was calling to me, and it nearly got me, and the only reason it didn't was because my friend happened to see it and told me the moment that he saw it, close the door, close the door, close the door. So very, very close encounter with this creature, but I know there's not a lot of encounters with lechuza, so I just wanted to share my experience. Like everybody else says, really love the podcast. You give us a platform, you give us something that makes us not feel so bad. Thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you, Nick. You know, I'll be honest, there doesn't seem to be much of a difference between this lechuza character and our old friend, the Mothman. Both take flight, both seem to emit these strange mechanical sounds. Both seem to be relatively the same shape, and much of the behavior both creatures are said to exhibit seems to be, well, similar. But you know, it may be possible that there's no connection here at all, especially if the quote-unquote witch was found responsible in Nick's tale. But whatever the source is, it was a great call, and we thank you, Nick, for sharing it here with us.
Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.
The cafe for the last time, saying they'll miss the delicious food.
Join us for a great conversation once again, Saturdays at 9 a.m.
Now for this next call, we visit with our friends up north. Jessica in Canada. Welcome to the program.
Hi Derek, my name's Jessica. I'm calling from Gatineau, Quebec, Canada, and I wanted to just relay a story that just happened a week or so ago to my husband and I while we were on vacation. So we decided to visit Cape Breton, which is in Nova Scotia. It's an island in Nova Scotia, and it is famous for the Cabot Trail. The Cabot Trail runs from the east to the west side of the island on the north face, and it's gorgeous, and it's epic, and they're very, very steep mountains with beautiful faults on the inside, dense forest, ancient trees, ancient plants. It is amazing. It's incredible. We did the Cabot Trail twice, but the first night we were there, we did it without really knowing what we were in for, because the entire Cabot Trail can be done probably within a couple hours if you don't stop, which you do. But we also had to get back to the other side in a full circle. So we were staying on the east side. We went for dinner on the west side, and then after dinner realized we had about a 2-hour or so drive back to where we were staying. And because we were coming around, instead of going through the steep mountains and going back around where we came on the north side, we were coming around the south to get back to our B&B. And so in that case, you have to go inside the island, kind of, cross the island completely from the west to the east side. And that's what we did. And there's a pretty straightforward road that goes from west to east. And so we took that road, and it was a pretty peaceful ride. There were some mountains, but not as steep as the ones on the north side. Very dense forest, like I said. And coming towards the east road, there's a river that runs along the left side, and on the right side, the south side, there's a cliff face. And as we approached, maybe I would say like half a kilometer to the east road where we would turn to go towards our B&B, we saw a dog coming from the river's edge, jumping most likely up from the guardrail onto the road and then across our car onto the other side of the street where the cliff face was, which has happened before to us. Obviously, like, we know we have wild animals, wild canines in Gatineau, Quebec, so we've seen coyotes and we've seen foxes and bears and all sorts of animals, but this was something we had never seen before, and the only thing we could liken it to was kind of the body frame of a hyena, maybe with a little pointier ears. The issue with that was that, well, obviously there's no hyenas in Canada, and certainly not, wild ones. And the other issue was that it wasn't spotted. It was completely brown, like a dark brown color. And its tail was kind of like a hefty, like thick, not fur thick, but just like tubular tail that hung down. Otherwise, though, the frame is very hyena-like. No way it was a coyote, and 0% chance it was a fox of any kind. The only thing we could think that maybe it was a domestic dog that was like somehow had been lost and was like running around wild, but it really did not strike me as a domestic animal. It looked wild and it acted wild, and it also could not be a feline, because I know exactly what felines look like and what they act like and how they move their bodies, and it was definitely moving like a dog. So we were really shocked and weirded out, because though we love seeing wild animals and we look out for them all the time, this was just something we had no idea what we had looked at. We usually will say, oh, there's a beautiful coyote, or oh, that's amazing that we saw that eagle or something. But both of us were really hard pressed to figure out what we had looked at and what we were looking at. And I really wish we would have gone back, but it was just super late at night at that point, and we'd just been driving all day for hours and hours. So I wanted to turn back, but I wasn't driving, so I didn't feel like I should be asking my husband to turn around at that point. I did do some research, could not find anybody having similar experiences on the Cabot Trail or in Nova Scotia. I don't know if you've heard of this before, or if there's any possibility that it could be like a cryptid of some kind. I don't know. I am so curious, and I so wish I would have done more investigating at the time. But if you have an opinion about what that could be, I'd love to hear it. Or if anybody else has seen something similar on the Cabot Trail especially, but anywhere, I'd love to know. The Cabot Trail is just wild. Wild. There's a lot of people that live there. It's not densely populated, but there are a lot of residents. But it is just unreal, and I have no doubt that there are crazy wild things that live in there. And I'd love to hear anyone else's experience. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great day. Bye.
Thank you, Jessica. Now, we did some fast digging, and hyena did live in Canada tens of thousands of years ago, but not that far south, apparently. Not sure if they found any fossils in Nova Scotia. Either way, it doesn't matter, because the animal is long extinct. Now, my other guess here is a more simple explanation. The coy wolf, half wolf, half coyote, a hybrid animal that's quickly taken over the Northeast, and they're different looking than either a wolf or a coyote. The mixture of the DNA certainly creates a different looking animal. Now, Jessica, if you will, hit up the show notes and have a look. Tell us if it was the coy wolf that you saw. If not, I say, be careful out there, folks, because apparently there's a monster roaming around the lands of Nova Scotia. Thank you again, Jessica, for sharing your tale. Now, folks, don't forget to visit our merchandise shop. Just go to monstersamonguspodcast.com and click the shop tab. There you can pick up all sorts of different Monsters Among Us gear. And each and every purchase goes directly back to Monsters Among Us. Now, up next, another nightmarish entry. Please join me in welcoming Anonymous from Parts Unknown.
Hi, Derek. I'm going to remain anonymous, but I will tell you that this story takes place around 2007 when I was attending Hofstra University in Hempstead, Long Island. I was living off campus with a few of my girlfriends at the time, and we were in a pretty bad living situation. We had a landlord who was a peeping Tom, and he was also harassing us, so we needed to get out of that house as quickly as possible. We found another off-campus house that was a little bit further than we would have liked, but it was a good price and had a nice backyard. It was your typical, potato farm post-World War II home. And the guy showing us the house was a preacher, and he said he raised his family there. And I don't know, it just seemed like all the signs pointed to yes, so we took the home. Literally, from move-in day, really weird stuff started happening. I could probably speak for over an hour about all of it, but I'm going to tell just a few of my own personal stories and hopefully get the other girls to call in and give their stories as well. And I think it's important to say, yes, we were intoxicated for some of it, but for the majority of it, everything that happened, we were completely sober. In this home, there was always footsteps, doors opening and closing on their own really fast, stopping on a dime. You knew it wasn't like the wind. We'd all get really bad feelings that would come and go out of nowhere. My bedroom was above the dining room, and while we're eating dinner or playing cards, we would hear someone walking around in my room very, very loudly, like clomping. I'm a debunker at heart, so I would go up there right away. I had 2 finished crawl spaces. I'd crawl inside. I'd look for evidence of animals like raccoons, which would happen in some of these homes. I could never find anything. No droppings, no food, no scratch marks. And these raccoons would have had to have been doing backflips to make these noises. But aside from that, one time we were all standing in the kitchen chatting. I look past my roommate across from me who's speaking, and I see a creature, I don't know what else to call it, walk from her bedroom across the hall into the bathroom. And I can't believe I'm going to say it out loud, but it looked just like Dobby the house elf from Harry Potter. Mix that with the water alien thing from The Abyss, that movie. It was like a transparent, clear fluid Dobby the house elf. And the only difference between the house elf and this creature that I saw was that its legs were inverted, kind of like bird legs. Anyway, my roommate saw my face. She stopped talking. She's like, "What is it? What do you see?" I turned to the roommate next to me. Her jaw's on the floor. Her eyes are bugging out of her head. We both saw the same thing. It's silent in the kitchen at this point, and we hear water running in the bathroom. So we all walk into the bathroom, and the sink is on. I have no idea how that could have happened, since everyone was in the kitchen. Must have been whatever the heck that thing was. Another time we were having a small party get-together in our living room. There's 25 people in this living room. And right in the middle of the party, something loud, big, runs down the stairs and slams into the front door. People stop what they're doing, drop what they have in their hands. Everyone's, scared. I am not. I'm kind of crazy. So I get up, check the stairs, nothing is there. Open the door, nothing is there. Go outside into the front yard, nothing is there. Everyone was so scared, they just got up and left. They did not want to be there any longer. The thing that really sent me over the edge, though, was just thinking about it, I have a physical reaction. I had an internship over the summer I had to wake up really early for. My roommate texted me one night. She was like, "Hey, I want to talk to you when I get home." I said, "No, it's going to have to wait. I got to wake up at 5 a.m. I'm lying in bed, wide awake, staring at the ceiling in the dark, because I'm anxious over this internship. I'm anxious over whatever my roommate wants to talk to me about. So I hear my name whispered outside of my bedroom door. Immediate reaction is anger, because I was sure that it was this roommate trying to talk to me, even though I said I need to go to bed. I roll over. My back is facing the door now, and I hear my name whispered again inside the room. And I've seen some stuff in my life, okay? I've been attacked. I have been almost kidnapped. I've had a sawed-off shotgun put in my face. And none of those times compare to the fear that I felt in this room at that moment. It was more than just something calling my name. It was a feeling that was being emitted. It just felt very animalistic and like instinctual, like gut fear. I don't know how to explain it. It was the scariest thing I've ever been through. I'm lying there frozen, praying it goes away, and then it does it again right next to my ear. Flip on the light, jump out of bed, nothing's there, of course. So freaking annoying. I hate that. Rip open my bedroom door, run into the hallway. My roommate's coming in the front door with shopping bags on her arms, so I know it's not her. She's flipping out because I'm flipping out. I'm hysterical crying. She takes 2 steps into my room, stops, backs up again, puts her hands in the air and says, "Why does it feel like there's no air in this room?" And that's exactly what it felt like. It felt like when you're in the hallway, everything's fine. And then if you step into that room, it felt like a vacuum, like the pressure was different. There was a pressure change in there. Ever since then, could not be in that house. It was not good. We all decided to break the lease and move out. They moved out before me. I tried. I think I made it like 5 nights alone in that house, and I just couldn't do it by myself. So I packed up all my stuff, and I lived out of my car for a month before I could find a new place to live in the dead of a Long Island winter, which is a crazy winter for anyone who has never lived there. It's intense. And that was a better situation to me than living in that house alone. And I tried everything to debunk it. I had a handyman come over. I knew a guy. He was a handyman. He knew construction. He was an electrician as well. I asked him to look through the house. I said, maybe it's that electrical, something about EMF. I heard stories. I said, maybe it's mold. Like, are we hallucinating? This guy said the house is fine. So I really don't know. None of us can explain it. We still talk about it whenever we get together to this day. Yeah, so thanks. I hope you can share this. And I just want to say thank you because this podcast has gotten me through a lot of tough and lonely times, and I will be forever grateful to you. So thanks. Bye.
Thank you, caller. I do hope you can get the other girls to call in. I would love to hear about their experiences. At least I think I do. Because if they're anything like your experiences, caller, we might get more than we bargained for. Because there was a plethora of odd and eerie events in your story. None as disturbing as the translucent house elf, however. I've heard a lot over the years, but it's a first for me. So thank you again, caller, for sharing that eerie entry.
That's 800-874-774-518.
What? You missed it. How do you like your pork tenderloin cooked?
Now next up, folks, we have another unidentified creature. This time from the state of New Jersey. Sarah, welcome to the program.
Hi, Derek. This is Sarah calling about a story from when I was a teenager. I lived in a town called Vernon, New Jersey. It's a very rural town for New Jersey. It was summer of 2009, either late July or early August. I was at a high school party with some other kids from the theater group I was in. Some people were drinking. I was not, and we were just hanging out in this person's backyard in a neighborhood in Vernon called Old Orchard, which was sort of a development, but it was kind of up a hill surrounded by woods for the most part. So at this person's house, like I said, we were out in the backyard. There were houses around, but each yard was divided by like a small tree line separating the different yards. And the yard behind the house I was at was just an empty lot. And to the right, if you were facing out into that lot, was the street. So, and then across the street, there were woods, and there was a single street light that you could see. And I had gone with another friend of mine back across the tree line of the backyard into the back lot of the next yard because we wanted to, like, get away from the other people. We were just talking, hanging out. So we were sitting there talking, and the person that I was with, they were initially, like, their back was to the yard where the party was happening, and then they were facing out into the field, and I was facing the person, so I was facing towards them, back towards the yard where the party was happening, and we could hear everyone else, you know, talking, carrying on, whatever. And maybe we had been there for 10 minutes, we were talking. I heard a sniffing sound. It was very strange. And it sounded like when a dog has its nose to the ground and it's trying to, like, pick up a scent. So I hear it, and it's very loud. It kind of seemed to be coming from, like, all around us. It was very strange. Then I remember I stopped talking. I kind of looked around for a minute. I didn't say anything to the other person, but we both, like, kind of stopped, listened. The sniffing sound stopped, and we went back to talking. So a few minutes after that, I heard it again. And again, it's like, it sounds like a dog, like it's like that, like, except magnified by 100. Like, it just seems to be just sort of, like, emanating from the air around us. And if there were a dog somewhere off in the distance, like, there's no way it would sound that loud. I know that's a poor description. I don't really know how to describe it. It was such a bizarre thing. And so then I turn around again and look into the empty lot. It was a field that kind of sloped uphill. Maybe about 70 yards away from us, there was a single tree in the center of this lot. And I turn and I look, and with the light of the street light, and it wasn't a full moon, it wasn't incredibly bright, but there was enough light. With that and the street light, I was able to see that there was something moving, and it was near the tree. And I watch as this thing, I kind of just see it as, like, a black silhouette. It seemed like maybe it had fur. And it was interesting because it was on all fours, but it was higher up in its back end with, like, shorter legs in the front, the way, like, a rabbit would be or, like, kangaroos do. And it's moving towards the tree. It's only a few feet from it. And the way that this thing moved, like I said, it looked like a rabbit. Sort of. I mean, not with ears, but just the shape of the body, except much, much larger. From where it was with the tree, I would estimate that, like, on all fours, it was maybe, like, 4 to 6 feet tall at its, like, highest point, which were, like, the hips. And so this thing, I watch it move forward, and it moves like a rabbit would, where it moves its front legs reach out, and then the back legs kind of, like, hop to meet the front legs. And it's moving very slowly, and I watch it do this a few times, and I don't see a face or eyes or anything like that. I'm just kind of seeing this thing silhouetted in front of me, and I watch it move, and the sniffing that I had heard, it is coming from this creature. So it's, like I said, about maybe 70 yards away, maybe a little further. But if this were a regular animal, like a dog or something, there's no way you would be able to hear it the way that myself and this other person could hear it, as if the sound was just, like, coming from all around us. It was so just, like, impossibly loud. Meanwhile, we can still hear the people in the yard behind us talking and everything, so I don't think it was something they were hearing. And the thing just kind of was shuffling around under the tree with that same movement, like the front legs move, the back legs sort of hop to meet it. And after watching for what couldn't have been more than, like, 30 seconds, myself and my friend, we just kind of look at each other and turn and run back into the yard where everyone else is. and we don't say anything about the experience to each other, and we don't say anything about it to anyone else. My friend left the party shortly after. I spent the night, and we were supposed to camp out in the yard, but I did convince everyone that we should sleep in the living room instead. What I think is really interesting about this sighting that I had is that there are tons of black bears in Vernon, New Jersey. I've seen lots of black bears in my life, and I feel like people would automatically say, if they knew where I was from, you saw a bear, but this did not move like a bear at all. The way it moved was so strange, and the way that like the back was sort of like curved and the hips were higher than the shoulders, and the way that it sort of like shuffled along like an enormous rabbit would do. It was very strange. Okay, thank you again. Bye.
Thanks, Sarah. What was that thing? The pale crawler instantly comes to mind. But the shape sounds more like a kangaroo or a wallaby to me. But in New Jersey. And do roos sniff around like that? So loudly she could hear it from a great distance. Now, Delaney did find something a little interesting in regards to kangaroos in the Garden State. Apparently, there used to be an African safari theme park operated by Warner Brothers in the early 1970s there in Jersey, called the Jungle Habitat. You could drive your car through fields where wild animals such as lions, zebra, and elephants roamed free. Over the years, reports had come in from the West Milford area, the location of this park, claiming that monkeys and kangaroos were seen roaming the woods there, obvious escapees from the park. Now, coincidentally, Milford, New Jersey is only 25 minutes away from Vernon, New Jersey, the location of Sarah's experience. Now, whether that is too long or too far for a kangaroo to survive, that's up to you to decide. And you know, I don't know what you saw that night, Sarah, but I do completely understand why you wouldn't want to be camping out in the yard. I wouldn't want that thing sniffing around my tent, either. But a big thank you for taking the time to share your story. And somebody please let me know if their kangaroo is loose in New Jersey. Now, next up, not all beasts are unfamiliar. Take Gabby's experience, for example.
Hey Derek, my name's Gabby. I'm a Patreon subscriber and I love the show. I was just listening to one of your episodes where you have Delaney on the show and she talks about her ABC encounter. And I wanted to share mine from, I think it must have been November of 2006. I was new to Nashville as a college student at the time, and I had taken a friend of mine from Pulaski, Tennessee to Memphis for my sister's wedding. She was our videographer for my sister's wedding. And the deal was she would video my sister's wedding if I would, take her from Pulaski to Memphis, which was this little highway, I guess, like a one lane each way, dark country, like rural highway between Pulaski, Tennessee and Memphis. Just kind of runs along the Tennessee border. And I picked her up and took her to Memphis. We had the whole wedding. It was great. And then the agreement was that I'd take her home that night, which was fine. Just a few Red Bulls and zebra cakes, and it wasn't a big deal. But I'll never forget, I dropped her off in Pulaski, and I was taking Highway 64 from Pulaski back to Memphis, where I was back home over the holiday. And I'm in a little, coupe Honda Civic driving down this dark country road. There's no lights and it's just farmland, just rural Tennessee. And I will never forget being in my car by myself, and it's probably 1 a.m. in November, cold, and it's just cattle. And I just see these shoulders just moving in my headlights, walking up the shoulder of the highway. And I'm going only maybe 60 because I'm afraid I'm going to hit a deer. And then I see the biggest Black Panther, or ABC, that I've just ever seen, ever, in real life. And I just see shoulders glistening and a tail swooping behind it. and I drive past it, and I immediately just kind of slow down, but then I get terrified that this beast could just eat my car if it wanted to. So I drive off, and I'm just shook, and, I don't need any caffeine to get home. I'm, wide awake at this point, but I remember going home, and no one believed me that there's no black panthers in rural southern Tennessee. But I'll say that I love hearing your show and hearing other people's encounters, and I can't wait to get my ABC t-shirt and just keep it up. It's so much fun to listen to, and it was really great to hear Delaney on the show. So thanks so much. Bye.
Now, of course, she's referring to the Beyond episodes over at Patreon. I've had Delaney on, or the MAU Mima she insists on being called, on a couple of different episodes now. Stick around to the end of this episode to learn how you can check out that bonus material. Now, Gabby, thank you for calling in. I'm afraid I have no answers for you, and I've even seen one of these things myself. I've yet to crack the case. But I am convinced, as I'm sure you are, that these things are real, and they are truly out there. What they actually are is beyond me. Well, thank you again for sharing the phone call, and thanks for picking up a t-shirt. We sure do appreciate that.
A 3 a.m. wake-up call. That's 855-51.
But I've never seen something.
Now, folks, I have one more story to share with you here this evening, and I saved one of the scariest for last. Now, the hobby of looking for Bigfoot is pretty popular these days, and folks go quote-unquote Bigfooting out in the forest all the time. And 9 times out of 10, they come home empty-handed. But on that rare occasion, contact is actually made, but not necessarily always with the correct creature. Please join me in welcoming Brittany out of the state of Tennessee.
Hi, my name is Brittany. I live in northeastern Tennessee in an area called Cumberland Gap. It's a very historical little town, very rural area, very small town, country folk, people leave their doors open at night, a very farm-oriented community. I work I'm in management for a large company, so there's a lot of responsibilities that come with my job, and, the weekends, I enjoy my time off of work and spend a lot of time outdoors. I'm an avid huntress. I fish a lot. Deer season, almost every weekend, I'm in the mountains hunting. And I've got a story I would like to share about a dogman encounter that I had unexpectedly. It was a Saturday night. It was almost midnight. The time of year, it's early summer. This actually just happened about a month ago. It was my husband's birthday, so it was around May the 14th. And my husband wanted to go cryptid hunting for his birthday. And me knowing the wilderness and all of the back roads and country roads and offsets like I do, volunteered to take him cryptid hunting at night. So we loaded up our spotlights, and I don't go anywhere without my pistol. Obviously, there are large, dangerous predators in the woods here. We have mountain lions, black bears, coyotes. So I do travel with my pistol. We loaded up our equipment, some phones, cameras, a drone that has night vision capabilities. My husband is an avid drone flyer. He loves flying his cinematography drones and his FPV racing drones. And we go out down this little gravel road back in the wilderness. It goes down through the mountain, all the way down to the base of the mountain where there's a river that runs through. It's called the Powell River. And the area that we went was called Gap Creek. There's a creek that
conjoins with the river. The creek is small, but the river is pretty big. It's Tennessee's most biodiverse river. I think it's one of the most biodiverse rivers in the United States, actually. But anyways, to go ahead to it, we were driving down the gravel road very slowly, looking out the windows, just looking for Eyeshine. And again, we were hoping to see maybe a sasquatch or anything really. And we seen a couple reflections, like raccoons near the creek. The farther down that we got, I noticed some bright red eyeshine. And immediately it attracted my eyes. My husband didn't see it. I pointed at it, and it was as if whatever eyes my headlights caught, it saw the headlights and it turned away. The eyes were really big, about as big as my fist, and very vibrant red, almost like brake lights, like somebody's brake light being turned on, but it was two eyes. And I look and I don't see anything, so we pull up a little bit closer to that area, and on the side of this big walnut tree, this is like an 80-foot tall walnut tree. It's huge, and there's tons of foliage because, again, we're in the mountains. The fur on this thing, it blended in with the foliage, but at the same time it didn't. It was a full moon outside. I couldn't tell if its fur was white or gray, and it looked to be about 8 foot tall, and its fur looked like it was matted together or like the creature had gotten wet. Because of this, I could see the skin underneath the fur, and it was hiding its face and its head. It was in the foliage beside of this giant walnut tree, and it was hanging on to the tree like it was trying to hide itself, but at the same time, it was revealing itself. It was just super creepy, very strange experience. Like I said, I'm an avid huntress. I fish all the time, and I've been in the mountains my whole life. I grew up in the area where I saw it, and I've never seen anything like this. We were hoping to see a Sasquatch, but we ended up seeing a dogman, I believe, instead. Right after that, we drove on past where the encounter was, and this huge pack of coyotes start screaming at the top of their lungs. It sounded as if something picked up a big rock and threw it down the hillside at the coyotes, and whatever it was that was bothering them had them so agitated and riled up, they weren't afraid of our flashlights, they weren't afraid of the vehicle. They just kept getting closer and closer until we ended up having to get back in the car and retreat to go home. So yeah, that's my story. We love your podcast. Thanks.
Thank you, Brittany. It's pretty incredible that you were out cryptid hunting and had some success. That doesn't happen all that often. Now, the Dogman. One of my favorite cryptids. Probably because I loved werewolf movies growing up. Teen Wolf, American Werewolf in London, the Howling series. Now I know I said I don't do deep dives on Tuesdays, but I did pull up another encounter from that general part of Tennessee, just to see how similar the two were. So the following took place in 2012, somewhere near Jefferson County, Tennessee, and comes to us via the North American Dogman Project. My son's friend was driving him home about 11 p.m. through a rural residential area. The houses are spaced some distance apart. They were on a 2-lane highway with no streetlights and very little traffic. The area is not overly wooded, but has patches of trees and fields. This area would probably be included in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains. Anyway, they were driving along when suddenly, from the right side of the road, this thing sprang out. It was across the road and into the bushes on the other side, in 2 leaps, or bounds, or steps, or however you want to say it. It was in full view, because of their headlights. My son said the first thing he thought was dog. He went on to say that it was running on all 4s like a deer. He said it was the color of a deer, with a huge dog head, massive shoulders, and a really small waist. He kept repeating how big it was, so I asked for a comparison. I asked if he meant huge, like maybe a big deer, or was it maybe as tall as a cow? He answered, and I can quote his answer. "Mom, this thing was massive. If we had hit it, the car would have gone underneath it, and its body would have hit the windshield." Neither he or his friend said anything for about 10 seconds, and then his friend yelled, "Did you see that?" My son said yes, and they didn't say another word the rest of the way home. Now, coincidentally, there is also a Dogman map available on the North American Dogman Project website. A map that, like the Pale Crawler map from earlier in the show, features reports of Dogman sightings from all over the country. If you're into that sort of thing, I posted a link up in the show notes. Now, thank you again, Brittany, for sharing your entry. What a way to close out the very first Tuesday episode. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Now I'll catch you back here on Thursday with a brand new installment, and back here next Tuesday with our next themed episode. Until then. Monsters Among Us podcast is written and produced by me, Derek Hayes. Copyright Red Crow Media. Additional support is provided by Sarah Carter Hayes and Delaney Bowers. All media used in this production is done so under the protection of fair use. And if you're a fan of the show, be sure to follow us on social media, YouTube, or leave us a rate and review wherever possible. Finally, tonight's score was provided by Iron Cthulhu Apocalypse, Co.ag Music, and Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Now don't forget you can catch more Monsters Among Us by joining our Patreon campaign. Just visit patreon.com and search for Monsters Among Us podcast. Join that $5 level for bonus material, the $1 level for ad-free content, and you can try either free for 7 days. That's patreon.com and search for Monsters Among Us. Now folks, this may come as a bit of a disappointment, but there is no secret entry on the Tuesday episodes. It's a Thursday thing only. So when I say goodnight, it's for real. So, good night.